And so Havarna, the light of glory, left the world. The day that the king Jamshid, consumed by his own vanity, declared himself the equal of Ormazd, Lord of creation. And from that day forward, a great darkness descended upon the world. But the seeds of that darkness were sown some time before that. Beyond the kingdom, at the edge of the desert, there lived a chieftain who was righteous and wealthy, a gentle old man by the name of Mardas. Now there were two things that Mardas loved more than anything in the world. The first was the moon that he worshipped every night as his god at his well. And the second was his son, his young, ambitious son, whom he gave the name Bivarasp, the majesty of 1,000 horses. Now one day, Mardas's young son was approached by a stranger. And the young man found this stranger pleasing, even handsome. But that was for no other reason than that the stranger was the young man's own greed and ambition. "Dostum, my friend," said the stranger, "is it not true that you are the son of Mardas, the most wealthy chieftain in this area? His flocks and his herds stretch out across the grasslands. They are the envy of other chieftains. Wouldn't it please you one day to be as powerful and as wealthy as your father? And what will you do to make this happen, young man? Will you just wait here, seeing half of your life pass itself by?" And at these words, the young man replied, "I am Bivarasp, my father's dutiful son, and I will remain his dutiful son as long as my father lives. For indeed, there is no father in the world who is as gentle and loving as mine." "I see," said the stranger, "that you are on an empty stomach. And it is hard to have courage on an empty stomach, to dream big dreams, to fulfill great ambitions. Come and dine with me this evening, for indeed I am an excellent cook." And the young man, who found the stranger so pleasing, could not refuse this invitation. And so the young man found himself at the table of the stranger, as the stranger served him a dish that was so delicious that the young man became even more hungry with every mouthful. In the middle of the meal, the young man cried out, "My friend, what is this dish you serve me? For indeed, never in my life have I ever enjoyed anything this tasty." And to this the stranger replied, "Dostum, my friend, what I serve you is a stew made from the flesh of the partridge, the lamb, and the calf." "Sacrilege!" cried out the young man. "How can I dare myself to eat such a thing? For all this time humans have lived peacefully with animals as neighbors in this world, and now is the first night that a human has dared to eat the flesh of an animal." "And so it will be from this time forward," said the stranger. "But it seems that my dish does not please you, my friend. You are not obliged to finish it. Let me take it from you. But, on the other hand, if you choose to finish what I have served you, you must do everything that I command you to." Now the young man was so pleased with this dish, it pleased his palate so much that he could not resist finishing it. And so once again the young man sat at the table and finished this delicious dish that the stranger had served him. And at the end of his meal, the young man had cheeks that were flushed. His voice became deeper, and his lips became stained with blood. "I will do anything you ask of me," said the young man to the stranger. And so the stranger led the young man to the place where his father prayed to the moon every evening by the well. In that place they dug a pit, and they covered that pit with branches. And when night came, the stranger and the young man hid behind a tree, the young man standing by as he saw his father fall into the trap that he and the stranger had prepared for him. And then the young man went to the pit and looked down, and in the moonlight he could see at the bottom of the pit his father's lifeless body. And at this sight he gave a cry of such pain. But when the pain passed, the young man felt a hollowness in him. He walked towards the well, and he looked into the water at the bottom of it. And when he could not see his reflection in the well, the young man understood that that evening he had lost his own soul. The stranger saw the sad face on the young man, and he said, "Rustam, young man, do not trouble yourself with futile conscience. Come, allow me to embrace you, and in my embrace you will fall into a pleasing and deep sleep." And with those words, the stranger approached the young man and gave him a kiss on each shoulder. And at this, the young man fell fast asleep. And he woke up from that deep sleep, and he realized that he was lying on the grass by the well. And he felt a terrible pain in each shoulder. And he felt a constant hissing in his ears. He turned one way, and there he saw growing from that shoulder a snake. He turned the other way, and from that other shoulder he saw another snake. And then he realized that there were these two snakes that were growing from his shoulder. And he cried out in horror as he ran. He ran to the healers, pleading him. "Look at me," he said. "Is there not a cure for such a terrible illness?" And the healers, seeing a sight that they had never seen before, tried to cut off the heads of the snakes. But once they cut one head, another appeared in its place. And the hissing was constantly in the young man's ears. And the healers looked to the young man with a hopeless glance. "Alas," they said to him, "alas, it is your fate that these snakes that grow on your shoulders will be your lifetime companions. There's no remedy for this, and they will never leave you in peace unless you feed them well." "But what do I feed these hideous monsters with?" cried out the young man. Your snakes, said the healers, have no other meat than human souls. Human souls. And so from that day, the young man was given a new name, Azidahaka, or Zahak. Zahak, the dragon-shouldered king. And the sight of him instilled fear in everybody. Everybody who saw this young man with the shoulders that grew from, the snakes that grew from his shoulders, could barely look upon him without trembling with fear. And the young man got used to it. Indeed, he was pleased after a while that people were afraid of him, for with fear he would have power over anyone who crossed his path. And the snakes hissing in his ear fed his ambition. And he dreamed one day that he would rule that kingdom of humanity beyond the grasslands. He gathered an army, and when they found themselves at the gates of the kingdom of humanity, already the subjects of that King Jamshid were weary of their hollow king from whom left the light of glory. And when they saw the hideous sight of Zahak, they were filled with fear, and they fooled themselves that their fear was loyalty to their new king. And so Zahak, the snake-shouldered king, became the next king of humanity. And he reigned for 1,000 years. And during those 1,000 years, fear became a daily habit for humanity. Hypocrisy disguised itself as the truth. Generosity disguised itself as philanthropy. And in this kingdom of fear, humanity began to believe that they, like their king Zahak, had lost their souls. And so Zahak reigned his long reign, his reign of fear, when darkness deepened over the world. And as the centuries passed, everyone became accustomed. Fear became the daily food of every human being who had believed that they had lost their own soul. But then, even with Zahak, his reign had passed several centuries, and then it found itself in the remaining years. And it was during this time that the king Zahak had a strange dream. In his dream, his palace was stormed by 3 tall soldiers. And the tallest among the 3 was a powerful young man who wore a mantle of light over his shoulders and had a nimbus of light that crowded his head. And this illuminated young man held in his hand a bull-headed mace with which he struck down Zahak. Well, Zahak woke from this strange dream, horrified. He called the Mobatha, he called the priest to his bedside, pleading with them to interpret this dream for him. But all who gathered there were so afraid of their king, they did not have the courage to tell him the truth. And so each tried Each tried to tell the king what they thought the king wanted to hear from them. But among those there was one who chose to tell the truth. It was a priest called Zahak. And this is what he said to Zahak, the serpent-shouldered king. Your Majesty, everything in this world has its own end, and your reign, as long as it has been, is no different in this respect. For there will be a young man who will come from the mountains, who will wear the mantle of light known as Chavarna, the light of glory. And he will come to conquer you and succeed you as king. And when he does so, Chavarna, the light of glory, once again will return to the kingdom of humanity. When Zahak heard this dream, he collapsed in horror, falling from his golden throne. His guards came to pick him up and revive him. And when he revived, his mind became calm again. There is only one thing to do, he said to himself. I must kill everyone and anyone I suspect of that warrior who appeared in my dream. And so Zahak passed laws. He called his army to search throughout the kingdom for everyone or any youth that he suspected might be that warrior in his dream, that warrior who would one day be the king that succeeded him. And how many youths died? How many youths died feeding into the fears of Zahak, the serpent-shouldered king? And how many fathers held prisoner by their own fears willingly passed on their sons to be executed by the armies of the king Zahak? And after many deaths, Zahak allowed himself to be comforted with the thought that he had killed the rival he had seen in his dream. And so he reigned as before, thinking that nothing would ever change. But alas, fate takes no orders from human kings. And destiny after all had promised the world that Chavarna, the light of glory, would return to it, like spring returning after a long dark winter. And so quietly, away from the ears of the king's soldiers, in their private thoughts, humanity held to its stubborn habit of hoping for that day that Chavarna, the light of glory, would return to the world again. And one day their hopes would be fulfilled. And the way it happened was like this.